Hey guys, it's Courtney Rose, and today I want to talk to you guys about how to communicate with your friends and roommates about living with type 1 in college. So first I want to start off by kind of talking about how my roommate and I first met and brought up that discussion. We met a few times before starting school. We met at an open house, we met going on a tour. There were a few different events on campus that we met at and we talked to. Living with type 1, it wasn't something that I kind of showcased or talked a lot about, but I would, check my blood sugar in front of her, or I would bolus if there was food at the event. So she was aware that I did have it, but it wasn't a super strong conversation between us. And then a couple weeks before orientation, she actually messaged me on Facebook and asked if I wanted to be her roommate. And I was ecstatic because she knew I had diabetes and she was asking me to be roommate. So it kind of alleviated that stress a little bit. I slowly but surely started talking about it a little more, giving her a couple more explanations, explaining what highs and lows were, talking about how you only give insulin when you're high, not when you're low, eating sugar when you're low. I kind of gradually brought it about just so it wasn't super overwhelming all at once. The big thing that I did stress with my roommate and my friends early on was the glucagon, and how if we were ever out or if I was acting weird or if they were uncomfortable, I kind of explained to them, like, I will never be upset if you need to call my parents or if you call 911 or some sort of EMT on campus, because I would rather be safe than sorry in that sense. Other than that, I kind of let them ask questions, or I would slowly bring it up, and I used kind of the humorous, laid back approach rather than the more serious, stern approach, because I felt like that might scare them a little bit. I velcroed a glucagon above my door just so there was always one so everyone would know where it was. So I always kept one in my backpack so that I had it on me at all times. But then if anything ever happened, all of my friends, my roommate, and my RA knew that there was always one velcroed above my door. So on move-in day, we were getting that set up, and she actually asked, she was like, oh, do you mind if I ask what's in that red container you're velcroing to the door? So it was a good way for us to kind of initiate that conversation, and then I would bring things up, and I told her that I'm comfortable talking about it, and as she would see me doing things or changing things, she would kind of ask questions, and it was a really good and natural way for us to talk about it without me unloading too much onto her, but her knowing just the right amount. And we also became really good friends. We lived together for 2 years, so she ended up learning a lot about what it meant for me to live with type 1. So one thing that I do just want to say is that I think when it comes to talking to your friends and your roommates, there is no one right way to do it. I know for me it kind of came up over time, but in some cases that might not work, and it might make more sense for you to talk about it all at once or having to reach out to your roommate. So I'm just kind of sharing my experience and what worked for me, but also everyone knows themselves and their situation the best. So I always say, start with a little bit and see if their interest is piqued, if they are kind of responsive and want to know more. If not, just give them what they need to know. So a couple things that I did put up in my room is I taped these up to my desk just as kind of reminders of what highs and lows look like and what some of the symptoms can be. So if all of a sudden I'm acting a little delirious and I'm super thirsty and I'm talking about a headache, my roommate can kind of glance over and be like, oh, her blood sugar might be way too high, or she might be super low. It was cool that they started picking up on my symptoms, and they also had those two sheets as kind of a reference. The other tool that I did use before going to college and looked into is the College Diabetes Network's Off to College booklets. So they have one for students, and then they have one for kind of parents and caregivers, and they actually go through and outline a couple different ways and bullet points and tips on bringing things up with your roommates, if you need to give them, you know, the bare minimum, this is what my diabetes is, this is what you need to know, or if you want to take the humor approach like I did, or if you want to go a little bit more in depth. So those books did really help me. So my roommate knew the most right off the bat just because her and I were together the most and we lived together, and over time my friends learned a lot as well. It was never something that I hid from them, but it was never something that I like blatantly showcased. And if we were out in public and I wanted to check my blood sugar or give myself a shot, bolus on my pump, whatever it was, I would never hide it, but I would never be like, hey, I'm taking insulin. So they saw and they knew it was happening, but they didn't fully know. But over time, they would kind of start asking a lot of questions and figure out if there's anything they could do. And they would try and figure out if they could, like, oh, she said she's low, like she needs sugar. They kind of liked getting involved in that aspect. And then one day they actually all sat down and asked if I would kind of go over all of it with them and kind of give them a play-by-play of all the things that I have to think about. So that was really special because it showed that they really cared and wanted to learn, and it made me feel super comfortable and safe because they wanted to know. My roommate at one point also followed my Dexcom. If we were ever, you know, out or she thought I was acting weird or I wasn't with her and she was nervous or for any reason, she just was able to check it. So that was really cool for me as well. And then over time, all my friends got, you know, my phone passcode in their phone if they ever needed to open it for emergencies. They were all totally fine in the event that something ever happened. If they had to like reach out to my parents, they would do that. So it became like a really cool dynamic with us where they were super involved in my diabetes management. They were very supportive and also knowledgeable about what to do if I needed them. And it kind of gave me that security blanket and made me feel really safe. And it also made my parents super excited because they knew I had a really solid group of friends who were really interested and understood what my kind of day-to-day with type 1 looked like. So overall, I just kind of wanted to give you guys a little insight to what my experience was and what some of the resources I used were. But again, everyone's situation is different, everyone's roommate is different, and everyone is different in how they want to express how they live with type 1. So you guys all know yourself the best. So if you don't want to take that humorous, casual approach and you have a different idea, I say go for it. Definitely look into the Off to College booklets from the College Diabetes Network because they give a lot of great tips and pointers, and they actually, I think, pre-write a paragraph that you can just send to your roommate if that works for you. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to how to communicate with friends and roommates in college. Stay tuned. I have a couple more videos coming out about drinking in college and the social scene, about communicating with your parents, and about dealing with professors and administrative offices on campus. If you guys have any comments, questions, concerns, please feel free to reach out, and definitely follow me on Instagram at faultypancreas13. Thank you.